pleasure. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, so I met a lot of smart people recently, and they've been raving about your book, Disrupt You. Right? So what's the story behind it?
You wake up one day and you realize a whole bunch of your friends have been really, really successful. And if you're honest, you realize you're not special. You're not brighter than anybody else. You didn't go to the right school, you shouldn't have anything. But you start noticing patterns of looking at the world differently. And so I wanted to pay it forward and teach people how to have success. If you think about it, schools don't teach you how to have success. If anything, it's the antithesis. Your parents don't want you to fail, so they guide you a certain direction. Your teachers don't want you to fail. And they start teaching you to not take chances and risks, which is not how you become successful. You become successful by failing. You learn from failing. A child learns to walk not by walking, but by falling down. And so in Disrupt You, we really break it down for people, and I've been humbled by the response. It's in 8 languages. I've heard from people in over 100 countries. And at the end of the day, it's entrepreneurs that keep democracies working. They're the job creators. That's where all the problems of society get solved, is by entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs don't sell things. They solve problems. Solve for 5 people, you have some friends. Solve for 1 million, you're a millionaire. It's that simple.
So you're creating like entrepreneurs, at least thinking, and then eventually them taking action and solving problems. The goal for this is to create more entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and to create a more stable society. The middle class is evaporating. And when you look at what causes that, you can look at automation, you can look at half of all jobs will disappear over the next decade. 800 million people will lose their jobs globally. But you have a choice. So disruption isn't about what happens to you, it's how you respond to what happens to you. So the same tools that connect us, that phone that you carry in your pocket, you're 1 click away from 7 billion people. You only have to be right for a nanosecond to become a billionaire or change the world. Every 48 hours, there's a new billionaire created. Never been a time like that in history. And these are not people that went to the right schools, came from the right connections. They're coming from the 4 corners of the earth. But they're looking at every problem in their life, every challenge, as an opportunity in disguise.
And if you were able to travel back in the past 20, 30 years and give yourself one golden nugget of a mindset that you could install, embody, and fully just run with, what would it be?
As simple as it sounds, and Henry Ford said it first, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. But if you focus on being the best at what you do, we're the only one doing it. Because if you're the only one doing something, by definition, you're the best in the world. So there's always a new wave of change. There's new technologies that come along. And most people think that there's somebody else that figured out how to use the phone, how to use VR, AR, AI. The heavy lifting's been done. The networks are there. We're all interlocked. But most of people are thinking of some other application. They don't walk in your shoes. They don't know the problems that you have. And so what I hear from readers that have become very successful is they looked around their life. They looked at what's a problem that they have and what's now available to solve it. If you think about it, the smartphone's been with us 10 years. We can't imagine life without it. But if you look at the top 10 apps the first year, they were pretty much stupid apps. A fart app, a cat game. Nobody had a clue of how these things would be. Now we have apps that give us quicker driving directions. We have apps that make dinner reservations. We have apps that do almost everything. Each one of those was an entrepreneur that didn't invent the technology, didn't invent the network. That you're riding on the shoulders of 20,000 years of innovation. And you just have to connect the dots. And that's all I'm trying to help people do.
And I know there's a lot of different schools of thoughts on this, entrepreneurship, you're born with it, or you can create it. What's your personal belief in that?
Oh, it's a necessity. So I didn't set out in life to be an entrepreneur. I went to college, I got good grades, I bought into society's contract, and I graduated during a recession. And there was no jobs. And I had kids very young, and I wanted my kids to eat, and baby needs shoes. So I decided I have to figure out how to create my own job if there isn't one. And back then we didn't have the internet, we didn't have data, but I knew I needed data. So I ran an ad in one of the trades describing the job that I would want. And it was a blind ad, and I got a whole bunch of resumes in, and those resumes told me two things. One, what would I need on my resume to get my foot in the door and get that type of job? Where should I start? Number two, here's a whole bunch of companies where there's some employee with one foot out the door. So if I contact those companies, I have a pretty good shot of making it happen. Today you can do the same thing using LinkedIn. Reid Hoffman, who wrote the introduction to Disrupt You, one of the smartest people on the planet, really saw that by connecting everybody in the global workforce, you can find a mentor, you can find a path to anything, you can build a virtual company. You all don't have to sit in the same cubicle in the same city. You can get the best talent anywhere. If you look at companies like 99 Designs, they're doing logos. You have no idea what country the artist you just hired. And now that we have cryptocurrency that moves seamlessly across borders, you're going to see the ability for us all to cooperate together and solve some big, hairy, audacious problems. We're running out of clean drinking water, you know. We have climate change. We have lots and lots of problems. And now you can find people that have a like mind to solve them. And there's no barriers to getting capital. In the old days, you had to go to a bank, and banks only lend money to people that have money. It's like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And I remember starting out, I made the mistake, don't do this. I ran my business off my credit cards until you're completely in debt. You go, but since then I, work with VCs, but you have Kickstarter, you have crowdfunding, you can do an ICO, an internet coin offering. You can just put out your business plan and see who raises their hand and says, I'll give you some money. And what you're going to find is that your customers that are stepping forward. When Ray Kroc started McDonald's, one of the places he got money was from the guys that sold beef. His restaurants are successful, they'll make more money. So you can put that ecosystem together, and it's really fun to watch how fast people can go from an idea to changing their world.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you mentioned how that job post you did, right? It's you reverse engineered it, so you don't have to guess what works. You can see from the data and be like, here you go.
So data's your friend. Data doesn't lie. Data doesn't have any ego, and you don't have to be in tech. Everybody goes, well, that's for tech. No, it's not about tech. You are in the internet all day. You're on your phone all day. You are using tech. What you're not doing is using the data that it creates. So I tell the story in here of a young man, very smart, got out of college, has a job at a big ad agency down as low in the basement as you can be. And he's looking, he hates his job, hates the stuff he does, and he wanted to be creative and work with the big creative directors. And he doesn't know any of them, and it'll take him 20 years to even get a meeting at that level. So what does he do? He Googles one day and realizes the most famous creative directors at ad agencies, no one bought their names as search words. So he bought for a $9 investment. Bought their names, and when they Googled themselves, it said, hey, I want to work for you, click here to see my resume. And 3 of the 5 thought that was so creative, they called him instantly for an interview, and he suddenly had a fantastic job for $9 and a little bit of thinking.
Outside of the box, and it seems like that one plus the only limit people have is what they think is possible, or what they think the paradigm of how it should look like. But it seems like for you, it starts with disruption in just the mindset or the thinking first, right?
So you have to, everybody thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing themselves.
Okay.
So disruption starts with introspection. So self-disruption is like getting plastic surgery, but you hold the scalpel. What are those core beliefs that you were told your whole life? You're no good at public speaking, you can't do math, you can't do whatever. Because in 4th grade, you didn't do well on a subtraction exam, you're convinced that you can't do math. And you build these paradigms in. At the same time, if you can change yourself, which is the hardest, that little voice that's been with you all the time, you realize if you're malleable, so's the world. And the universe is constantly expanding. There are no limits on anything, so there's no limits on what you can achieve. You got one shot on this planet, and to me, the purpose of life is to live a life of purpose. Why are you here? What do you want to accomplish? How can you leave the planet a little bit better because you were here? You and I will never get immortality, but ideas and things that we create can be immortal. And that's really the exciting part. What gives life that thrill is we have such a short time to make that impact. And now we have tools that allow us to make it on such a massive scale. One of the companies I'm involved in right now is figured out a way to lift the bottom 2 billion people that are unbanked out of poverty and up by about a 25% lift of their take-home pay, just with an app. And I won't go into the whole thing, but imagine what that does for those 2 billion people. It's life-changing. And there are stories of teenagers that come up with cures for major diseases that use neural networks to solve the problem of breast cancer. And it's humbling. It makes me feel like I wasted a half a century on this planet. So it's really fun, and it's always changing. The other secret to self-disruption and being successful is we all work with that person who's in a funk. They got a cloud over them, like the Charlie Brown cartoons. Like, oh, traffic was bad. Oh, my problem, da, 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 da. And the problem with that is when you shut down your brain, when you only see the negative, you're never going to see opportunity that's right in front of you. So if you wake up every day with, today can be better than yesterday, and I have the power to make it so, you actually release endorphins in your brain. You light up the synaptic nerves like a Christmas tree, and suddenly you're feeling good. You're seeing the world possible. You are actually delivering drugs to your brain that make you more likable, smarter, able to close more sales, impress lovers, whatever it is. And suddenly it starts this feedback cycle. The more positive your attitude is, the more positive life seems to become.
And what's interesting that you mentioned was interrupting, like, limiting beliefs that people have. Do you have a process for that you can share? Like, is there
300 pages of process, but it really starts with breaking down what the opportunity is or what the problem is. I mean, we all get hit with unforeseen problems, and you instantly start focusing on, woe is me. I had this path. Step A was going to B, C, D, and here's a roadblock. Look at it from a different angle. Break down what's the important pieces. Most people look at all of business when most of business is a cost center, and there's a very little part that is where value is captured. Lots of businesses create value, but if you're not capturing it, it's not doing you any good. And by the way, the first third of the book was about changing yourself. Then I break down business for a third, and then I get to my favorite part of the book, which is after you took care of your wants and needs, why just focus on money? The same principles can go for education, for environment, for whatever problem you want to solve. And I've been lucky to hang around some amazing people that have just changed the world because they believed that they could. And the only person that can stop you from being successful is you.
I like that. So what are, like, quickly, if you were just to list some of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs make when it comes to just, like, whether it's a tactical strategy or mindset, what are some of the ones that you've seen over the years that are like, those are big?
So I always hear, if only I had had the funding. Okay, that's the 21st century version of the dog ate my homework. The world didn't run out of money. And we see lots of really bad ideas that get funded. And we see startups nowadays that are not profitable and they're $2, $3, $4 billion into it. So it wasn't that there wasn't the money. And this took me decades to learn, because I would come out of the meeting, why don't they get it? Why are they living in the past? Why can't they see this vision? It's not their job to see the vision. It's your job to communicate to the future in a way the people that are living in the past can comprehend. The failure is always yours. The failure isn't they don't get it. You didn't communicate. So when you start looking at there's no more gatekeepers, that it's really almost a Zen-like moment in funding, that crowdfunding is available to all but controlled by none. So look again at the data. Look what got funded. How did they do it? What was in their video? Where did it do? Reach out to those people on LinkedIn. Don't think, so the second big mistake is we tend to have this vision in the West of the self-made man. One who went out on their own and did it all by themselves. Name a billion-dollar unicorn company with no employees. Doesn't exist. So don't think that you have to have all the answers. But you are a couple clicks away from somebody that not only has the answers, but would welcome and want to help you. Some people are at a stage of their career where they'd like to give back. Others are in one area and would love to expand into another. It's amazing how open and helpful most people are. The other mistake that entrepreneurs do is they're like, oh, you got to sign this NDA. Somebody's going to steal my idea. It is so hard to get a business off the ground that you could throw out the ideas. There's a Y Combinator has a list of ideas they would like to fund. They put it on the internet. But it's so much work, no one's going to steal your idea. There's universities that have spent billions of dollars creating and engineering solutions and creating new things that they've patented, and they'll let you just go in and license the patent. They did the heavy work because their job was science. Their job wasn't building a business. And I talk about some of the fun ones, World War II, this was a great one. Southeast Asia was occupied by Japan, and we couldn't get any rubber for rain gear, for tires, for whatever. No rubber, war's going to end. So all our best scientists, all the big universities, making synthetic rubber, some type of plastic. And they finally got something that had the same viscosity, the same everything, except it couldn't hold a shape. It would just blow. It's just a blob. So the war's over. Millions were spent on this. No one cares. But a guy noticed that it was fun to just play with. So I hired a bunch of college kids on a weekend, put them in plastic Easter eggs, and we know it is silly putty 300 million eggs later, right? That was a defense project that failed. So many opportunities.
People just have to know where to look for them and not be worried about just things like, oh, someone's going to steal this, or things that, like, no funding, or things that they're not even relevant anymore.
So you can't do it alone. Build a team. Be honest what your weaknesses are. Don't find another person like you. Find a person that's complementary. Somebody has different skill sets. And you can learn how to do it. And you won't necessarily succeed the first time or the second time. But you'll never realize how close you are to success if you give up. And every once in a while on that hard road, look over your shoulder how far you came and pat yourself on the back. Go, wow, I can't believe what I've accomplished. I haven't made my goal, but if you shoot for the moon, you get pretty far. And pivoting, we talked about pivoting. A lot of people fall too in love with their idea that they don't see that there's a different application, that they're just one little shift. If you ever watch a sailboat go across a windy bay, it can't go straight. It tacks back and forth. Well, that's the same with you building an idea. And most of the big companies that you know today are not in the business they were set up today. Apple Computer. It didn't make its big money selling computers. It never got double digits market share. But then they tried the iPod and go into, consumer electronics. And then they went in the phone space. And suddenly, most valuable company in the world. And founded by not an engineer. Wozniak was an engineer. Steve Jobs, smart guy, hardworking guy, think different kind of guy. But if he can create the biggest tech company in the world with no engineering degree, no college degree, what's stopping anyone watching this today?
Good point. And a lot of our viewers who've seen, a lot of them seen you in the City Summit, are excited about your upcoming appearance and the March one. So for those who are attending there, is there any advice you have for them?
So I am obsessed with how augmented reality is going to change our world. So if you could go back in time and be my age, when the PC came out, it was a revolution, changed everything.
Right.
And created tremendous wealth and solved huge problems. And then came the web. And oh my God, it was an even bigger change and faster and steeper and more wealth created. And then the third transformation was when we took all that and made it mobile. I mean, all of us are carrying more computing power in our pocket than NASA had when we sent a man to the moon. Augmented reality takes it to where our environment will conspire to help us. We'll be wearing regular glasses that will give us information and connect us and make everything so much easier, so much different. And when you stop and say, well, who controls this $1 trillion opportunity? Who's leading the pack? Who owns it? No one. The heavy lifting, the heads-up displays have been done, the networks are being built. It's up to each individual to say, I see a new use. I mean, bots, the talking things that we now all have, there's earbuds now that will translate any conversation into 40 languages. You can travel the world. And with a pair of glasses, every sign will be in whatever language you read. You can get rid of clutter. You can do the opposite. And this is what I'll be talking about. Some of the applications of some of our clients and some of the businesses are doing to solve health problems, to solve training, almost everything that you can think of. But we're just at day one. And that makes me as excited as at the start of my career.
Yeah. So for the people who are watching this right now and they're kind of on the fence, they want to go to City Summit, but you don't, is there any last words of encouragement that you have for them or any thoughts for them?
If being positive and believing you can make a change gets you excited, being in a room full of people that not only believe it, but are doing it and have one hand out to help you is probably the most inspiring day that you'll have. And motivation, it's like a shower. You need it often. So come on out, say hi, and let's change the world.
And if people want to learn more about your message, kind of like deep dive into this, your thinking and stuff, where can they find and learn more about you?
So it's Samit, S-A-M-I-T, jsamit.com, jsamit on Twitter, Instagram. I'm easy to reach. Reach out to me and tell me how you're going to make the world a better place.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.